All right, good evening, everyone. This is the Town of New Canaan Town Council regular meeting this Wednesday, July 19th. It is 7:04 p.m. First order of business is our pledge of allegiance. We have Boy Scout Troop 45 with us. If you guys want to come up, see us in the pledge of allegiance. All rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. Tom, anyway, give us an update.
Good.
There's a mic right there.
Yeah.
Not that one. actually. The little tag that says do not touch.
So thank you for inviting us to do the flags tonight. We just got back about a week ago from our summer camp around New Hartford. All of our scouts had a great time. Unfortunately, we didn't have a large showing tonight, but everyone's still recovering. We would like to wish everyone who's running next week good luck. We also have a booth at the sidewalk sale on Saturday if you want to stop by. So yeah, thank you.
So where are you guys? Where are you guys on the street? Yeah,
18 now.
18 now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Chip.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Steve. And Colin. All right, next we're on item number 2, minutes. Approval of the minutes from the following regular meeting, June 14th. Oh, okay, let's go. Sorry. That's it. I skipped right over you.
Details, right?
Here we go.
Robin Ray,
Here.
Rita Bettina,
No, she's absent tonight.
okay, Tom Butterworth,
Here.
Mark Dempsey,
Here.
Peter Carl,
Here.
Ruth Hoffman.
Here. It's perfect time.
All right, Mike Morrow,
Second track.
Maria Norton, here, Kimberly Norton, here, Hillary Yorma, here, Christina Ross,
Here,
Penny Ann here, Rear Hall, 10.
Thank you very much, Penny. All right, here we go with the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the following regular meeting, June 14th, 2023. You had a chance to look through any additions, deletions, corrections. All right, seeing none, they're approved by unanimous consent. Item number 3, public comments. Members of the public are welcome to speak to the town council on agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Speakers are requested to provide their name and street address. Comments will be limited to 2 to 3 minutes, depending on the total number of speakers. Would anybody from the public like to address the council? Anybody out in Zoom? No one in Zoom. All right, well, not very popular, but it is July, so we'll go away. All right, so before we do first like an update, a couple of things on the agenda to move around. One, we had a charter revision all the way at the end. Dave Hunt's here tonight to talk about that. So we need a motion to move that up. We're going to do that after item number 5. So let's move it up to item number 6. Tom seconds, all in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then last item on the agenda is we're going to go into executive session, and we'll probably forego committee reports tonight. So we'll go into executive right before that committee report. All right, so need a motion to go into executive
We
for
have to add an item to the agenda.
add an item to the agenda. It's going to be a written discussion about real estate negotiations. So Mark makes a motion in a second. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, there's the business. And we have the first letter of welcome, Kevin. Thanks for coming as always. Thank you.
Good evening. I'll give you the update that I gave to the Board of Finance on the 9th, which was actually the June update. So it's kind of an instant editorialization of the June update. Because Bill's here. I just asked, are the Waveney House bathrooms done yet? They will be at the end of the month. As is the Waveney House elevator underway, the installation will be in December. We'll begin to do the preliminary work for the elevator. The service area, as you know, if you've been over to the Waveney house is underway on the left-hand side in the partnership with the Wade Conservancy. The Lapham Center CHP. We just made a change. We're probably not going to bring gas into the pool and the paddle courts because of the expense, but we will proceed with the original plan to bring gas into Lapham Center to power both the heat and the CHP units, which will provide power not only to Lapham Center but also to the water tower field lights, which I noticed last night were burning at 10 o'clock for some reason tonight. So I think it's important. We better cut back that $30,000 a year bill from those water tower field lights. 220 Elm, I was over there this afternoon with the superintendent. They will move on August 12th, Saturday. Looking very good. And they have to answer questions about that. The playhouse, they're going to get an update tonight, so I don't talk about that. Police department project is out to bid, and Tiger probably to be more update about that if you want it. The land trust is here tonight to talk about the 1124 Valley Road purchase transaction, so I won't give you an update on that. The NACUA program, the Silver Hill Hospital urgent assessment program is going very well. And Dr. Gerber came to the Board of Selectmen last week, gave an update. So we're looking for a brief written update that we can share with people. But the success of the program continues to make us want to fund the second year, and both the Board of Ed and the town of Weston and the Community Foundation are all into the second year funding. Metro North shutdown. I think we're getting word from Metro North they expect to finish before Labor Day. We'll have that officially soon, I hope, but that's good news for our commuters. And the Board of Selectmen still needs to act on what we're going to do as far as renewing permits and giving people credit for the 3 months they didn't use the parking. We'll do that in an upcoming meeting. As you know, the Utilities Commission had their first meeting. We'll meet again tomorrow night. And as you know, a lot of paving has been done around town. I agree with you further updates about that. As you know, 106 is heavily under construction with the Aquarian 36-inch water line. I think I may have mentioned the Board of Finance set the mill rate at a 3.09% increase, but Sevi, our assessor, has indicated he believes the grand list will come in for October 1st over $10 billion, which is kind of amazing. I thought we committed $9 billion, which will bring our mill rate back down into the 13s, which we were at like 15 years ago. And so we'll probably put us number 2 or 3 after Greenwich. And so that's all good news. And so he says nothing can really happen at this point that would reduce that $10 billion forecast. So
And when's that taking effect?
October 1st. Any questions?
Sure, what time? Memory bill different then? Or we just mail?
Well, you're paying last year's October 1st. Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't mean necessarily people's taxes are going down. It's just got to be a reallocation. But you know, a lot of those 3 or 4 or 5 and 6 or $7 million homes helped a lot, but finally got sold. So
We had a question for you.
Yes, where do we stand? Where do we stand on the constitution of the affordable housing?
Oh, that's
Well, we are ready to.
Oh.
You know, we've been getting some nominations. I really wanted to wait until we had some more clarity as to where we are with the pending appeals and also the appeal of our moratorium decision. We did get a ruling yesterday from Judge O'Hanlon that was on the technical, was the jurisdiction issue, but the substance of our appeal is still pending on the moratorium.
We have thoughts on when that is.
As far as the Affordable Housing Committee.
Well, no, I understand it's getting worked on, but a timing on when that might be constituted, but B, any thoughts or.
I wouldn't, we're several months away from a final decision.
So just to pick up on that affordable housing, just to answer my part of it, Kathleen Corbett had asked that the Board of Selectmen take it up at the July 25th meeting. And I responded that Tom Butterworth and I originally had said that we would bring sort of the gist of what we put together, which obviously you're welcome to help with that too. but we would go to the board of selectmen, give a report, and then also, explain exactly why we put in different people from different bodies and who those folks we thought should be on that committee. So that'll come at their August meeting. But we'll have certain things as far as.
Yeah, I think that company's traveling August 8th. Yeah.
Maybe we would.
But we'll get it done before September 1st.
Great, thank you.
How many more units need to be built to get the moratorium?
We could get a moratorium right now based upon all of Cannon Parish. The reason we're appealing the decision is because we don't want to waste $20 million of units. If we get no credit for the second building at all, that's makes no sense to us, makes no sense to our lawyers. So we hope the appeal will give us back those additional units. The Cannon Parish, we could get a moratorium now if we wanted it, but we don't
Is there a
feel
reason we're not doing that?
we don't need it.
But we have 3 projects in town, and I heard it before, so why wouldn't we get the moratorium?
Because we don't-
if
well-
other projects are happening.
Right now, we don't need it. I think the fact that we sent the word out to developers, if you want to come to New Canaan and propose something inappropriate for the location or overly sized, we're going to litigate. Because that's just, so I'm not aware of a fourth coming, anyway.
So I'm just curious, so your reasoning is you don't need a moratorium, even though we have 3 projects in town, and we could have more, and we're completely open to any developers coming to town, and you don't think we need a moratorium?
Well, there's a couple, Westcott has a committee going and it has some members of that committee who are developers. Given where interest rates have gone and given the cost of land in Canaan, no developer is going to come to New Canaan right now.
I just want to go on record as saying that's extremely risky in this town, and I totally disagree with that.
That's my judgment.
I know it is.
Okay, the date was last night, okay.
This is probably something coverage to have to chime in on, but in terms of the ARPA, what the balance of the ARPA that's left, and are there any?
The Board of Finance reviewed that with $700,000. $737.
Do we have any?
I think the Board of Finance is happy to bring that back in. We could have taken all $3 million, half of it back into the general fund, the exception. We do have a discussion, which we probably resolved yesterday with the neighbors Mead Park, about whether we should see with the flexi pave around Mead Park Pond. So that's, that would be $250,000. We'll see with that. So if anybody has any COVID related ideas, but it has to be kind of COVID related.
I was, that was my question, are there any other?
Yeah.
But.
Christina Ross. Hi, Christina.
Hi, I just want to ask a question and follow up to what Kevin just said. He doesn't want to file or doesn't want to request a moratorium because he feels is unnecessary. Is that what I just heard?
Yes, and I think it has the concurrence of Scott Hobbs with the housing authority, and so it's not just.
But do you
Yeah.
realize that the neighbors around those properties?
I'm
in the
not,
West
I'm not willing to concede, Christina, $20 million worth of investment in a building that we should get credit for. So we hope to win this appeal and get credit, and we'll be well on our way to a third moratorium. We'll get our second moratorium. And
Just to be clear, Christina, the projects that are on the books already can't be affected by that moratorium. Place are already grandfathered in.
that's right.
So there's not, if you make a moratorium, that's further developed, but it doesn't prevent the projects that are already on the books.
I understand, but the way I understood what Kevin was saying meant something totally different. So thank you for the clarification.
Kevin, I'm sorry, can I just clarify quickly? Is it because if we were, the way you're saying we could get a moratorium now, we would have to do both Canaan parishes to do that and disregard the Millport carryover units, correct? And so we're
Yes.
waiting for a decision,
And clarity that we won't lose
right?
the second building entirely.
So is
That's
the,
that's a $20
no,
million.
I understand that because we got the CO, the certificate of occupancy during this, what is technically this moratorium application period.
That's right.
But we want to save Canaan Parish too for the next moratorium.
That's right.
In an ideal world.
Exactly. And
So-
that was the plan adopted before I became first selectman by the P and Z in cooperation with the housing authority.
So my question.
I'd like to stick to our plan.
And I completely respect that and understand it. I guess the question in my head is there a view that we would be, and I'm just clarifying, is there a view that we would be, if we file for a moratorium now based on Haven Parish 1 and 2, which we know are available to us and could achieve a moratorium. Is there a concern that we would, if we got a favorable ruling from Hartford, we would be stopped from sort of switching the basis of our moratorium? Do you know what I'm saying? That we would then get credit later?
I should have mentioned besides, this is the town attorney advice as well. It's not
Yeah.
so, if I'm not making this decision alone is my point.
No, I understand that, and I'm just for clarity of everybody involved, is there a concern that if we did file for a moratorium and get based on King Parish 1 and 2, which we know we could get now, is the concern that it obviates the need or gets rid of our arguments in court, which are pending now,
Exactly, that's, we're sort of losing the ability to continue that appeal.
because we would be,
It's conceding $20 million worth of
and
value.
we would be conceding the housing authority or the state housing authority's interpretation of the
Yes,
statute,
yeah.
which is that you can't carry over, so we would,
Which we think is crazy, not only for New Canaan, but other towns.
I don't disagree.
It's sort of like saying, you didn't follow the rules, you should have built precisely 60 units, and because you build 100, you don't get any credit.
Correct.
That's a crazy public policy.
I could not agree more, and so I just wanted to clarify that we don't wanna, it's a tension that I don't exactly know what the resolution is, and if the lawyers are telling us not to file what we have now, which we know goes in concert with the way the housing authority is interpreting the statute, then it might be our safest bet, but I'm not sure to not file for a moratorium right now because it could jeopardize our legal position.
Jeopardize the legal position, and as I said, I don't think there's risks that developers are coming in the current economic environment with interest rates where they are and the cost of land. That they would be looking elsewhere if they can try to make numbers work elsewhere.
Well, as I've said, somebody with anxiety like me, that's very hard to accept, but I hear your point.
Right.
All right, last question on that.
I heard there was a fourth developer coming in, but one of the things that I wanted to know is, we just talked about this as public information, right? Can you put a one pager out to the public to explain your strategy? Because they have no idea what's happening. The public has absolutely no idea. The people who live next to 751 Lee, the people who live next to Hill Street, and the people who live near the Red Cross building, unless they talk to you, Kevin, they don't know this. And they're struggling and feeling a lot of pain right now, and they have absolutely no idea why the town is not protecting them.
Until the last P&Z action was concluded, we were under the rule that we were not talking publicly, right? So, but again, I'm in public here, I'm making the statements, so I'd be happy to summarize it for people.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Any other topics? Moving on. All right, item number 5, we have the labor agreement to approve the labor agreement in Town Hall Employees Union Local 1303-465 and Council 4, American Federation of State and County Municipal Employees. The 3 years ending July 1st, 2025. Cheryl Jones is with us and Chris Hodgson. Chris, thank you for coming, and Cheryl, thank you for joining us. This will be brief. We did have a pre-meeting on this, so, or what do you want to call it?
Information
gathering.
session.
And, so we're up to speed, council up to speed on this. So you just summarize it and then we'll put it in the vote.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, this is Chris Hodson. He has been our labor attorney for the past 7 years. We have 4 unions in town. This is the Town Hall Union. We negotiated with them starting in March. We just finalized it in July. We had 5 meetings. It was a good negotiation on both sides. I can't get into the specifics because the Town Hall Union has not met. They will be meeting on Monday night. I can let you know that the contract overall will run between 2.4 and 2.5%. So it is a very good contract for both sides. Once the Town Hall Union does approve it, then we will go public with the contract.
Thank you. And Mike Morrow is usually our labor guy, and he's stuck in traffic, but I did get a text from him that he did review it at length, and we all got a chance to look at it, so I think everybody's comfortable with it. And just if you could, a second on who is underneath this contract, who is covered.
This is the Town Hall Union employees. So we have administrative assistants under it, building inspectors, health inspectors, IT, town clerk's office. So it's mainly our administrative staff that's underneath this. There's 30 employees altogether.
You should play to our strengths if Mike is okay with
I guess it's expertise. So she'll feel comfortable. Thank you, Luke. All right, then let's go to a vote. Now we need a motion. That's Mark, second. Yeah,
Just to be clear, this is, we're voting on not to approve the contract, but to what?
Chris, do you want to give the language?
The language in the statute is you are voting to approve the funding for the contract.
okay.
Doesn't sound different to me, but that's all right.
Subject to.
Subject to approval.
Subject to
So,
approval.
and it just, I know we talked about the total dollar number, but the total dollar number to the town is.
It's going to be about
It's the rate.
2.6%. So we're averaging the contract overall will probably run us about 100 to 110,000 a year.
All right. So we got a motion and a second. All in favor? And Christina, you out there? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Chris, and.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much to the employees that are covering this. They do a tremendous amount of work and, make this place hum. I mean, everybody on that list is really what makes town hall as great as it is. The service here is amazing. Everybody loves coming by and saying hello, so,
Thank
very
you.
friendly staff, and they deserve every dollar.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, moving on. We moved up an item right behind this. And we're gonna talk about the charter for a minute. And we have item 11 moved up as a general discussion regarding possible upcoming charter revision process. I know Maria led us through this the last time. We invited Dave Hunt here tonight. Dave, why don't you come up to the mic, and Dave obviously was cajoled into this committee the last time, and I told him it wasn't gonna be a lot of work. He had never done anything like this before. And I've had to apologize pretty much every time I've seen him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Didn't you also get a free trip to Hartford out of it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That was an unexpected reward from the system. Yeah. I think, just to describe the process from what, now 7 or 8 years ago. We started in the fall of 2015 with basically constituting the commission, and in October sworn in and set to work. John Hetherington was our chairman. We basically established teams, went out to do a lot of interviews, research, if you will, and did that right through the end of the year and into the year following. We had meetings every couple of weeks. We had typically 2 a month. In January, John said he could not continue due to business and health issues, and so I ended up being chairman. Don't know jokes about Philadelphia in second place and all that, but the group nonetheless met regularly. We had public input at every meeting. That was one of the agenda items. We took on discussions of a lot of different areas. I think probably without a doubt, the hottest button in the crowd was the discussion of whether the Board of Finance should be chaired by the first selectman or not by the first selectman. And in the end, we did recommend that change, and the voters did approve it. We put together a list of several changes to the charter, and that was presented to the town council in April. Town council had appropriate hearings, approved what was going onto the ballot, and it made it into the fall ballot, which we felt very good about because, among other things, it's presidential election year. And so you've got a lot more people showing up at the polls, and we felt like we're getting as much as we can hope for in terms of voter, interest and activity in the community as we can. Was included in that change a requirement that the town council, not less often than 10 years, review whether or not to convene a new charter revision commission. And I guess that's kind of why I'm here tonight, to encourage you to not only talk about that, which you're obliged to do within a 10-year period, but to act favorably on it. I think that the timing is such that if that were to begin this fall, you could basically follow the same scenario that we did in 2015 and 16 and be prepared to have that on the 2024 ballot. One of the reasons I would encourage that is that there are several things that are out there that various people have feelings about that I think deserve discussion. I'm not in any sense trying to prejudge any of them, but there have been issues raised in various areas that would affect the election in 2025. How many votes do you get for selectmen? How many selectmen should there be? I'm again, no prejudgment, just I know those are issues. We never really hashed those issues out in any substantive way. We did take on the question of how many votes you should get for town council. And the answer came back, we should vote for as many people as there are seats available, which was 6. The prior charter had limited it to 4, which was essentially the number that any party was likely to be able to claim. So I think there's a reason to do it now, even though it doesn't bump up against the 10-year period. There are other issues that are out there. We didn't talk at all really, or in any substantive way, about term limits for elected officials, either the Board of Selectmen or you guys. I don't know that there should be any term limits, but I think it deserves consideration. I think you should come to a conclusion that this is or isn't a good way to operate. And I think in the absence of that discussion, you're going to have people out there who feel one way or another or the other. And I don't think that's in the best interest of the community. There's one other thing I just want to add to the process. I knew most of the people that I was talking to. I've lived in town a long time, but I didn't know everybody. And the ones I knew whether they were Republican or Democrat. The ones I didn't know, I still don't know. I mean, it was very much about New Canaan. It wasn't the R's want this and the D's want that. It was very much what's good for New Canaan. And that was a very rewarding part of the process.
Yeah, we talk about when you broke into your groups and you went into the different departments of town hall. Is that something that we can't do anymore, or we can do? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I'm more of a freedom of information expert than I used to be after what we went through, but I think there's a real question of whether that can be done without adding to it the requirement of a notice and a public session. We absolutely did not do that. And part of what we did was to assure each person that we were talking to of confidentiality of the information shared. We said, we don't want to, we want to know what the issues are. We don't want you to hide behind what amounts to a politically correct statement. Tell us what your concerns are. I felt very good about that. But it is not at all clear that that would be permissible and or that it even was permissible.
The way you would have to handle it now, you'd have to basically have a notice meeting, and then you would almost have to have a panel of people, and the people would have to come into the room kind of. Yes, right. So
well, that's, I mean, that's really kind of what we did, except for the notice and public part.
Right.
There were 2 of us on the team. As much as possible, we paired an R and a D, but as I said, I don't think that really had a lot to do with the outcome. And then we were here in town hall, and people would come in and have their, hour-long session with us to talk about what was happening. And I don't know
that's a really important part of the whole process is you have to have input.
it's the research, yeah. I just, and the part that's a little frustrating, I actually don't think the confidentiality was the end of the world. In the end, what we learned from people, I think they would have said it in open session by and large. I mean, there might have been a little hedging. I'm sure that there was some nervousness about saying that they thought the Board of Finance should really elect its own chairman. they felt that way, but they didn't necessarily want to say that in front of, at the time, Rob Malazzi. I mean, I'm sure that was a little bit of true, but the other thing I didn't mention, by the way, is that there were two people on the committee from the town council. And I thought that was very helpful. I thought it was very helpful that there were only two, but I thought it was good that there were two.
Yeah, we had picked an R.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really, you know, this is a very active body. You do a lot of things. And you understand in a way that the rest of us who are sort of neophytes in the whole system don't. So having that perspective was very helpful. It was very helpful that there were some people who had previously served in other functions, particularly the Board of Finance, I think. Having a voice from the past who kind of was appreciative of the deliberations that they went through also added value in the room.
And how many people were on that?
Well, originally 10, but then when John left, there were 9.
All right, I didn't mean to steal it, boy, I have a question.
Hi, is there a statute or something in the charter that says how you gather information, or is that decided by the committee?
The committee can decide to do whatever it wants to do. But it has to comply with freedom of information requirements.
Did you ever consider just getting anonymous written testimony and submitting it to the public? And did you ever ask the public if they had?
Every meeting that we had was open to the public, and there was a time slot allowed for public comments. Most of the meetings, we didn't get many. When we were talking about the Board of Finance chair, pretty much all the members of the Board of Finance trooped in and had their say.
Technically, you could send out a survey to the town asking them what they want to change in the charter rather than do it with individual interviews. But
Yes, we could, but if you're not involved in like the Board of Ed or the Board of Finance or the Town Council or the Board of Selectmen, the chances are if somebody asks you that question, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I think that, you know, these people aren't paying attention to it. That's my view, but I don't think there's a lot of input we would get other than from the boards. I don't know that there's any reason that we couldn't collect that information anonymously rather than having meetings. The advantage of the meetings is clearly there's a back and forth. You know, you said this, could you explain a little further? That kind of thing would be helpful, obviously.
Well, it wouldn't be mutually exclusive, I mean, do everything you did plus something else, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Plus a survey or plus anonymous.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But we can't necessarily do, as Steve was questioning, we can't necessarily do exactly what we did.
Right, right. So in terms of the role of the town council, you mentioned there were 2 town council members on the committee. At what points in the process would town council bring you ideas or proposals? Did any of that happen at the very beginning?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's basically what the research was, only it wasn't from the town council as a body. It was from you as an individual member of the town council.
Okay.
So we went to each of the members and asked them for input.
So there's no reason for us to convene a committee to serve up this process. We'll just be part of the process.
I think the way it really works is that you decide as a town council, there should be a commission.
Right.
You, I think, ended up approving the names of the people who were put on that commission. 2 of them were your members. You went away, let us do our work. We talked to you individually. We came back with a number of suggestions. You were welcome to attend public meetings, but by and large, nobody did. And then we gave you a report in April, and then you did have to start chewing on it. At that point, you had to review that and decide what, if any of that, you wanted to submit to the voters. That at that point, that's up to you, no longer up to the Charter Revision Commission. We tell you what we think. You tell us, what to do.
All right. Anything else for Dave? Christina, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just wanted to know, as far as the time frame, when did you start the process?
The commission was appointed in September, sworn in October, got right to work And right, more or less November, December, January, February, March. And come April, we were sending the town council a final report.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
Maria.
comment. So it seems the push right now is to form this commission, do all the work so that it gets to the presidential election. But it seems that all the work brings everything to the public as like they are informed. And if they are informed, I would think they would come out and vote regardless if it's a presidential or the one after. So I'm just wondering, are we just creating like a false sense of urgency when we really, the whole process sounds very inclusive of the public. So I think they would be involved, whether the deadline is the next, the presidential or the one after.
The public was welcome at all these meetings. I don't want to tell you how many people were there.
But see, if they're not there, will they know what they're voting on for the president?
That was what the big issue was. Once the town council approved these changes, was trying to communicate. There was one change that was not approved. And personally, I think there was a failure in our part of communication. The Board of Finance membership is composed only of those who own real property in town. I think people who rent in this town pay property taxes. They just don't do it directly. I thought that was, I thought there was skin in the game for everybody. The voters didn't agree with that. Which, in a way speaks to your question, though. There was some understanding out there. People didn't just blindly, pull the lever, because they did reject that one proposal.
So that would be my preference, would be to wait. I don't see the urgency of the presidential election being the driver of this. I think if you do it right, the public will know and they will come out and vote.
So what ballot would it go on then? 2025? When the
Well,
next
it's-
municipal election is?
So
or-
as Dave said, we agreed to review this at least every 10 years. So it doesn't mean that we have to do it.
Right.
We could actually say our intent is to review it at 10 years and do it at the next presidential election. I mean, it's wide open. It's up to us to figure out if we need to do it now, if we want to wait, because it's been 7 years. And that's really the whole point, is there's still a little bit of, it seems like we just did this a little bit, but this is why we're discussing it, is whether or not we want to do it now or whether we want to wait till there's some more meaty issues that we want to get into. And that's the sense of the council. The last time we discussed it was, let's wait a little bit, but that's why we have Dave here tonight, just to explain the process a little further, to see if anybody has any questions about moving it along sooner. So.
Ross has her hand up.
I just think my question is, if we put it off, I guess, would we save it for the next presidential election, or would we put it on the ballot?
You can do it at any,
On-
any ballot.
I know, I
You
guess
want
I-
you want to select one that has a lot of voters coming out
Yeah.
to it. November, there'll be, because of the local race, it may not be as big, obviously, as a presidential year.
I
So
should know this, but when's the next election after that New Canaan will be participating in after the presidential election?
Well, it's always
The
every
year
2
after.
years.
Every 2 years.
Yeah.
So 2020. Okay, I just wanted to get that.
Right. Penny and then Christina.
Yeah, I can, last week it was brought to my attention, because of the discussion about charter, that there is an issue that actually would affect the results in the 25 election, and that is the ability to vote on both the open seats on the Board of Selectmen. We corrected that in the town council because there were 6 openings and we had 4 votes. How that ever happened, everybody's kind of scratching their heads, because you want to be able to vote for the very people who were going to be representing you. We do not have the ability to do that with our Board of Selectmen. And because we have 2 openings and we vote for 1 person
For select person.
For
per selectman.
Right.
And so it would then affect how we would vote in the 25 election.
And I think what my second point was in asking what ballot would any initiatives that might come out of the charter revision process appear on is that then it wouldn't be effectuated until 2 years later.
That's right.
So in effect, we would be putting this off,
3 years. in the month.
several years because
be the
anything,
27
you would vote on
election.
it in 2025 and then in the next municipal election, if that, for instance, was what was adopted,
Yeah.
it wouldn't become effective until 2 years later. So that's putting off any potential changes even later.
But it's at 11 years then at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 year past the recommended.
I don't think we need to really glom on the decade. We had to put some kind of a time frame on the fact that we did not have in our charter a recommendation to have a charter revision commission at all. And so that was just what we came up with, was we figured, okay, a decade is a decade. And kind of an easy, time frame to be utilizing, but there was no gigantic amount of discussion on it other than to get something in there.
Yeah. Christina,
I would like to ask David, was there a budget granted to your committee?
No.
Were there expenses that were incurred?
There were very, very modest expenses for secretarial support. For someone to take minutes of these meetings and produce the minutes. I say modest, I suppose. I don't actually even know how much that cost, but it was like, roughly 2 hours of a person's time twice a month, plus writing them up. Probably it was 6 hours or so a month of a person's time. That was the only expense that was expected to be incurred. There were, however, legal fees at the end of the line because there was a Freedom of Information complaint filed with the state about our refusal to disclose what we perceived as confidential information. And we won. So on the one hand, there was some money spent. On the other hand, we were protected. I think it was, it wasn't a lot of fun. There was some awkwardness associated with the town approving those expenses. But I believe had they not, you would have had a terrible time getting anybody to agree to do anything for the town going forward if the town wouldn't support you in what in this case was not, it was an arguable situation, but we won the argument. So it clearly wasn't just malfeasance on our part to be in that situation.
Were there any townwide surveys sent out?
No.
Was there a reason why not?
Well, as I said just a moment ago, I'm not really sure, I'm not really sure that very many people in the town would have a whole lot to do with the charter or even know where to find it if they dug hard enough on the website. So the honest answer is I don't think we expected we would get any significant input relative to the cost and the hassle of doing something like that. That isn't to say it was wrong, and we could do it as a town that the next commission, whenever it meets, could choose to do exactly that. I think it's a question of balancing the cost and the return.
Well, I think it's just as valid as the census is, and you are required to provide some sort of answer, especially since you live in town and you're paying taxes, you should be involved, and we can give them links to those sites. So we can overcome some of the hurdles that we had 10 years ago, 8 years ago, just because everybody's is more up to date with the internet and the ability to do it online.
It's easy to do.
I
Alright.
respect everything that you're saying and thank you for your service, but I thought we had already decided to wait. I thought that was the consensus at our last meeting. I mean, I think it's really important to discuss process and I think it's interesting to discuss, but wasn't that what we decided? And we have a lot of items on our agenda tonight and we're spending a lot
We
of time on
decided
this.
to table it for the next meeting. So this is the next meeting. So I don't
we never actually voted on anything, so. We can keep talking.
You had a
I have
question, you had a
question.
question.
Yeah. Dave, thank you for your wealth of knowledge. In terms of timing, did you find it adequate in terms of starting in September or October? And that time frame worked?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like a lot of projects, if you allow a large amount of time, nothing will happen for the first 90% of that time, and then you'll run like crazy in the last 10%. And
Right.
we did not have to run like crazy. I was a little bit busy, but frankly, I was a lot busier after the report and the Freedom of Information thing
Got it.
than I was before.
Okay. So,
Because once the committee is formed, the clock starts and there's certain parameters that hit along the way.
That's correct. The state of Connecticut tells you almost what day of the week you can shine your shoes.
Yeah.
I find it hugely annoying, but it doesn't matter. It's the way it is. So yes, to Steve's point, once you start the clock running, then you have some specific time horizons. If you were to start that clock running this September, you would need to have any changes that you decide to
Right.
approve, go to the ballot next November.
okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, Dave, thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item.
So where are we gonna go with this, Steve? Because we're really kind of backing ourselves into a time.
Oh, we still have August. We still have August. We have,
But we don't meet in August.
we still have September. So, I mean, we've got to really, again, it's more discussion. I mean, to me, this is a big, big time suck for the town council. I remember going through it. It was an enormous, on both ends of it, forming the committee, plus the work, plus the other side of it. And we've got a lot going on, and we'll have, as we discussed the last time we met, we'll have new members. Tonight, we don't have everybody here. So I wouldn't want to have this discussion too deeply without everybody being here. So,
Okay, so the town council does not do the work. The town council does not do the work.
we did,
Dave just said it.
Penny, look back, we did a
Fine,
ton of
just-
work.
just
We did a ton of work.
Stop it.
Christina
Ross
is
raising her hand.
Hi, Christina.
I just don't think that we should be pushed into making a decision now. This is a lot to process. So let's table it and move on.
Mark.
Yeah, my opinion has changed or sort of evolved over time, so. I do think it should be something. If we want to do it, it should be done during the election next year, so. Again, I'm evolving and leaning towards we should be thinking about this. Happy to table it for another meeting, but. I think it needs to be decided by,
Okay.
October.
I agree. I mean, I don't want to have this drag on, so we will have to
I
decide.
think that's a great suggestion, Mark.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on because we got a big agenda tonight. All right, next item up is the Playhouse update, review and update Playhouse renovation project. And we have Ian here tonight. Welcome, Ian.
I'm going to recuse myself and sit in the audience.
Thank you, Hillary.
I
Hello.
don't have to leave the room.
So that's legal.
No, you don't.
In that room and watch it on TV, so it'll be.
Rewrite.
All right, so I think we're at a point where we're pretty much concluding the process that we embarked on. So we got firm numbers back or based on the 95% plans from Aldrich and Bailey, Eastern Mechanical for HVAC and plumbing, Darien Electric for the electrical work. And the quick synopsis is that if you've got, just look at my numbers, the purchase order balance for the work remaining was 4.075. And then there was also $600,000 from the from ARPA. And then there's a sort of a side budget for Cinelabs. So what we've boiled down and categorized the different pots of money, and we look at, so if we were at 4,675 as a budget, we're coming in right around 4,475. And I would say we would all look at that $200,000 as contingency, which is really part of the budget. Just because this is an old building, there's surprises that will constantly come up. And then the last piece of it is the Cinelabs, which is really the more finishes, acoustical decisions that they'll have to make on how much they want to invest in acoustics, but that's in their court. It's also their AV equipment is in their court. So, but as far as the infrastructure to get us to a white box and even a little beyond the white box, it's the plumbing fixtures would be by the town and stalls in the bathroom would be by the town, tile would be by Cinelabs, but I think that it's in a spot where it's as tight as it can be at this moment. And I think that that's the budgets that we have look like they're probably accurate to where it's going.
Great. Questions for Ian? Kim?
So has the budget come down? I'm just, because I know that we wanted you to look over the budget and try to bring the cost down. So has your involvement resulted in savings to the town?
I think that we have a much firmer scope, which probably has added scope from the original, just because the plans have been developing through all of this. So there's going to be some value engineering that is still ongoing for a few different things, but I don't think it's going to be substantially down from where it was.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ian while we have him? If we go into that building right now, compared to where we looked at it, where it was down to the brick, what's happened since we were there? Can you give us a quick, has anything, is there ongoing work going on in terms of?
There's some work that was, previously contracted up to the point where, we couldn't go forward. So we started building the elevator shaft, for example, things of that nature. So yes, there was work. There was work that had already been contracted to continue so that we wouldn't lose that time either. But substantially, it hasn't changed much because we had to, wait for a decision from the council. So you'll see, you would go in there, you would see some improvements. You definitely see some improvements, but it wouldn't be like you'd say, oh, I have a theater now.
Yeah.
We're not at that point.
Yeah, well, we didn't expect it to be a theater yet, but
No.
but
So where do you see your major challenges being? I mean, Kim asked the question, hey, is there a cost reduction? And kind of the response was, adequate, saying, this is what we're doing. There hasn't been a movement. So, transparency is a big focus of the town council, just understanding what's happening, what happened, and what is the best path forward. I think that's very key because it's a great initiative and I think everyone supports it. We're all excited about it. If you can explain just a little more detail. Kim raised a question, hey, is the cost down due to this? And saying, hey, we did some work at the facility and it's going to represent, what we're going forward. But where are we today and where do we look, going forward?
Well, the biggest number is the HVAC for sure. The HVAC had equipment that was ordered and it's a very good system. And if you're looking at the building as a 50 to 100-year building, then nobody will ever regret going with this HVAC system. Could you cut corners? Potentially, but it was already a little baked in the cake. So it's, I think it's the right system for the building. And I think it's,
I don't think anybody's looking to cut corners. I mean, it's a very negative connotation. I think we're all behind this initiative. And I think, given the age of the facility, that we want to upgrade it to its best and highest use potential in today's day and age. I wasn't saying like, hey, let's cut corners, let's reduce costs. I'm just want to get a feel for where we are and what's happening in the current market.
Well, it's, Aldrich and Bailey has been very involved with going through the plans and we've gone through the scope of work to make sure that it's as tight as it can be at this stage. Even the elevator pit, as they started working on it, the structural engineer came in and realized that there was a few more things that needed to happen. Bill was very creative and was able to borrow steel to do temporary shoring instead of having to pay for it. So it was, that was fortunate. So where we are right now, they've done as thorough a budget as they possibly can do. I think it's, and the real question marks, they call the plans 95% complete. That last 5% is going to be finishes primarily, and that's going to be a little bit of, and that's really Cinema Labs' responsibility.
Ian, when Cinema Labs makes those decisions on finishes, who approves those, the way that looks and feels? Are they 100% in charge of that, or do they run all that stuff by you guys in terms of, I mean, they originally showed us what it was going to look like and the look and feel of it. Were you expecting the same kind of finishes, or are they value engineering as well?
I think they're value engineering. They brought in an acoustical expert. They had a budget that was probably $35,000 for acoustics. And we see this all the time in the design world. So the acoustical engineer came in with a platinum package for acoustics, and several $100,000. So that's got to be a discussion very soon with Cinema Labs to say, what do you want to do here?
We're trying to get ahead of this. We're trying to understand what's the cost, because there's been some overruns on a go forward. And I think it's been highlighted by town council initially that we want a complete transparency, projections, and what they've done in the past. And I think that this is an excellent opportunity, and I think the town's going to wildly benefit from it. But adding, a third party that's overseeing and saying, we're as tight as we can be, doesn't really say anything, and then it's still the same cost that they originally presented, except that we're much further past the original cost. And now we're as tight as we can be. We had a couple bites at the apple. I think the idea is to not take another bite here.
Right. I think probably it was premature to commit to any kind of budgets
Agreed.
Previously.
Agreed.
And there's no way I think anybody could have foreseen where this project went when there was sheetrock on the walls and you couldn't see what was behind it. So it's, I think we've looked at the scope of work, and I think it's really, Glenn from Aldrich and Bailey has a reputation of being very open with his books, and I think that he's committed to making these budgets work and I would be surprised that without some very surprising unforeseen circumstance coming back with it increasing.
Okay, so the sheetrocks are down, right? So I mean,
Yes.
that variable's out. So now when we said it's as tight as it could be right now, we feel very comfortable that this is going to be the budget going forward.
I feel very comfortable, but the first time I looked at the elevator pit, I thought that was going to be, I thought everyone sort of had a good feel for what it was going to be. As you start the work, you get into it, there's a little more structure that needs to be in place, and especially temporary to get it to where it needs to be. And that's a case where it won't increase the cost, but but we didn't know that. And there's a chance that we would have had to buy the steel as opposed to have it knowing somebody who could lend us this deal.
I'm just asking, like, a lot of the variables, listen, anybody that has home renovation, you take the wall down, you see that there are pipes everywhere, electrical everywhere, like, it completely understand that. But are we at the point that we've moved past these major variables that say, hey, and when I saw the pit was X and now it's going to be Y? Are we at the point when you said your opinion was that the budget's very tight, as tight as it can be? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, and I think that by having that $200,000 of contingency, that I would expect to cover things that we don't know yet, but I can't imagine it not being covered by that sort of a contingency.
Okay.
Have you guys,
Steve, may I ask questions, please?
hold on one sec, Christina. Tom, I saw Tom first. I need to put Tom up and then you're up next.
Okay, to me, there could have been two really good outcomes from your process. The really, really good outcome would have been, oh my God, I saved $500,000. But the really good outcome is that you're confirming that we weren't screwing up. I mean, that we didn't waste money. I mean, you probably not only are able to confirm the tightness of the budget now, but also looking back that the overruns were not things that we should have known about.
Right. I think
Great.
people don't love the idea of what's called design build. But in this case, if you put in more fixed price budgets based on items that we don't know, the price actually, it makes all the subcontractors get nervous that, boy, this is gonna be worse than I expected. They have to cover their worst case. And so I think the budget actually probably would have been higher if it's a different process. And unfortunately, with a 100-year-old building, this is, I think, the process you almost have to go through.
But Tom, I disagree. I think this was, and it was personally by me, was brought up initially, and I had a lot of pushback saying that this was a tight budget. So saying that they didn't know, I'd like to account for these type of options. So when we buy, rather than come back for a second, a second, a third bite of the apple, that we kind of know that going in. It's like, okay, listen, it's a 100-year-old building, but that was discussed in the first meeting and the presentation of the letter of intent. And they were very firm on the numbers and what they can do. So I don't think we should just breeze by the comments of, oh, you didn't know that. Well, that should be accounted for. So that should be in a project, and that should be in the budget that, hey, listen, there might be X that's going to happen in a 100-year-old building. And we know going in that the building's 100 years old, and given the concrete and what's behind the walls. So I don't want to just breeze past that. We've come back to town council for additional funds for this project, which I think is going to be wildly successful. I want to be on record, wildly successful. But I personally went on record initially saying, I'm not sure that this is, projections and a lot of other things that we listed and highlighted, that the request to say, well, we didn't know this, so I don't want this to be taken as a knock. If you're going to do construction, if you're going to do build, and you're going to know that the building's 100 years old, then there has to be a certain preparation going into that.
Thank you. All right, Christina.
So, Ian, my point is regarding the bringing you in on the project. I was expecting that in reviewing the project, that you would be able to provide a project schedule, both for the materials of different trades, and when you would estimate that this could be done by, based on the information that you gather. Second, I would have expected a budget with actuals, projected and actuals as to what the bids came in at. I'm not even sure if the project was bidded out for different trades, or if it was just given away to one contractor. I don't mean the general contractor, I mean the subcontractors. And third is that this was presented as a project that, as Luke stated, was very tight. And in fact, it wasn't. It was a design build, and that was not disclosed to the town council when we approved the budget. So we have a situation where the project has gone over budget by $2 million plus, and we are nowhere still. So I'm asking that the plans, the budget, the bids, everything be available for review at the offices, because obviously coming back to us, there's still no change from where we were a month ago.
I would say that as my role, I don't think I was coming in to do schedules and come up with pinpoint budgets. I'm reviewing the numbers that are coming into us. So, if you want to hire us as the builder, we can come in as a builder. But that's not what we do.
Ian, no, but as a consultant on the project, I would have expected you to use the consultants that we have to get that and gather it together. You're there basically as the orchestra's leader. So, and I don't want it to be confusing for the public that this, it wasn't a mistake in terms of the cost overruns. It was a grave mistake because it was misrepresented in terms of what type of project we were entering to.
Guys, I just want to remind you that we already had this meeting, like we already screamed and yelled about this once before. So we're trying to move this along where
we want the results, and we don't have any different answers than we had a month ago,
well,
or 2 months ago.
We also asked for a level of comfort, and I believe we have that. I mean, it's a much better place than we were when we started. So I kind of disagree with that. But anyway, let's get going and wrap this up. Kim?
I'll try to move on from that, although I do have some concerns. But so Ian, do you anticipate what else you might find? So you've got the elevator pit. You said you don't really know, like, as given that you're experienced in this with commercial, I guess renovating old buildings. Can you tell us what else might be a problem potentially?
We've been through this a bunch and I don't see anything else. So, but I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything. And so I think that's why I think we're covered, but there's still some go arounds of, putting it back together, and it can cause some surprises as you do that. But I think that by finding that $200,000 contingency, I think that should cover anything. The last question is going to be getting that last piece is Cinema Labs to finalize their scope, and the town technically is not responsible for it, but they're partners, and it's important to lock that up and make sure everyone ends up in a spot where they're happy, I think. So
Thank you. Is there anything left to uncover, or is everything like down to the bare bones now in terms of digging things and opening up walls, and is everything now at the baseline?
I would say it is, but there's going to be some digging to run some utilities and stuff. So
It's 100-year-old building, so.
right.
Right.
It's
Okay.
But we
just
did
try-
go into this knowing it was a 100-year-old building.
Yeah, I know. And but the likelihood of us discovering something else is, I would say, is probably 99.9%. I would say that we are definitely going to discover something else. You just know it. I always expect the worst when I go into these things. So I don't know. Last question. Do we have any idea timeline? I mean, originally we went in thinking we'd celebrate 100th anniversary. Are we going to celebrate 101, or are we 102?
Well, at present, we're at a stasis because we have a gentleman's agreement that we won't proceed further until the council says yes.
Right.
So we're at that point.
Okay.
We can't proceed further, so I can't give you the schedule because you have to tell me that it's okay to go, and then we're gonna go. We won't make December.
Okay.
It'll be sometime
In the January. So we need to give you a go to get this thing moving. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So then what's our,
So we
Do it.
what's holding us up? Why is-
we go back to that original, we don't have a motion or a vote on tonight's agenda. So if
I
we need to
understand.
do that.
So
then-
I understand that.
I guess you could add, I mean, the thought was that, yeah, we had you graciously gave the award. for the
Right.
Money, but then asked us to come back and have.
We had the
Ian-
three-legged stool that we asked you to do. Yeah.
Right, so we
Yeah.
had Ian come in and take a look, overall as to where we were going, and whether or not we would make it. I guess we would look at it. And he's taking a look at that, and I won't speak for him, but I believe he says, yeah, we're where we said we would be. The number is are as tight as he can get, according to him, at 95%. The 5% is just left for Cinema Lab, and that's on their end.
Yeah.
But yeah, you and I have a gentleman's agreement that I'm not putting a shovel in the ground, and I'm not spending any part of that additional funds without you saying, or the council saying yes. So that's my problem.
Right,
Right.
I didn't realize that, so.
Well, we need to get moving on
Is
that. then.
anyone, or was everyone aware that, I'm just wondering, what do we need to do?
Well, we just need to.
Why are we waiting, I guess is the
We
question.
just, we need to give
The,
them.
the update as of last month was identical to what I just heard. And now we're waiting a month, so I don't understand
So
what,
let's
I
call
think
the
we're
meeting as
closer
August.
now than we were last month before.
No,
He's
that's
got much
fair,
more
but-
feeling.
the question, the same questions were asked of Ian last month, which was, are we way off? And the answer was not really, so, and that hasn't really changed, so I was unaware that we've actually halted the work, that Tiger's waiting on us, which,
Well, there was also final developments of wrapping in what has been found in the building into the design.
right.
So that was a big part of the process.
Okay.
So the plans are much further along, so which gives a much better, firmer number from.
So it wasn't on
We're-
town council,
weren't-
our decision, you guys were still developing, like, research and looking into the project.
You wouldn't have actually had.
We already
hammers.
approved the money, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure
Yeah.
What's the holdup?
what agreement.
But have we held up stuff? Like, if you were working on other things like you just said,
I think we're.
what would you
we're
have
at a point
started?
Now we used that time while Ian was here to then finalize the plans, wrap it all together to be at this point where we're at the white box phase. Right,
Yeah,
we're
got it.
meaning that we have everything planned to put in the white box. The 5% to fill it on the Cinema Lab side, they're still working on that end, but we have enough information now to know that and based upon the budget, we're gonna be fine moving forward. And we have the plan set accordingly, we just need
You're not, and you're not saying Cinema Lab's holding us up, right?
No, they're not. They're working on it at the exact same time. They're just not finished with it because they're working through exactly what type of finishes they want and they're deciding on their own as to where they want to go. And then they've got to pass it through us as well, since it's our building, you know. So there's certain finishes that we're talking to them about and their choices and things of that nature. And they're still working on their end,
But so to Mark's point, he's, and maybe I'm interpreting wrong, Mark, and I'll have the same comment. If it was approved and discussed last month, what is holding up? Like, is there something you need approval on, or, I mean?
So we, to remind everybody, we went and said, we will not move forward on this unless we have the following things in place. And the last leg of that stool was Ian's work had to be done. And tonight he's saying it's completed. I think the important point too is to remember that the last 30 days, how many hammers and how many nails are banging away in that building. And I don't know, I don't think we're ready for that yet. Anyway, would we? I mean, would we be working right now in terms of if we had the green light, did we lose what, 30 days at most?
at most.
Yeah.
You know.
And I don't even know if you would have gone
Overall,
forward
it
with the
didn't
work.
hurt it didn't hurt the project
Yeah,
per se,
yeah.
but you know, we had an agreement
Yeah.
that said that, you know, we wouldn't because, you know, if I gotta come to you for a budget next year, I gotta be able to look you in the eye the exact same way I'm doing now. So that's why I said until the council had the comfort after Ian passed through his test,
Yeah.
we passed through Ian's test, and then gave the council the comfort to say, yes, it's okay. And then we'd like to bring the contracts to the board of selectmen and move forward. We have them written, they're ready to go. They're ready to be on the agenda for Tuesday. And then we can actually start the contractor in earnest. and- So that's where we're at.
So Tiger, by the way, you might want to share the mic there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You use the term gentleman's agreement. So is it possible that we could have a gentleman's understanding tonight that we could confirm in a future meeting? It sounds like the hangup is that we didn't put a vote on the agenda, but do we really need a vote?
Yeah, the money is already approved,
Yeah.
but we put contingencies on the approval of do this, do this, do this. So
Okay,
now that,
so
now that
it's
he's
fulfilled.
checked all those boxes,
Check,
it's
check,
filled.
check. So
He's
now
on
where
his
do we
way.
go?
Where now he's off and running. He's gonna go to the Board of Selectmen.
But you're right, so we don't actually have to vote on it.
We don't need to vote on it. We don't, you know,
So-
he's a gentleman coming back saying, I'm done with the stool. Can we move on now?
Okay, so the next time the Board of Selectmen has a meeting, they approve it and off we go.
Yeah. That's
That
correct.
go to Board of Finance also?
No.
I still want some of the answers, whether or not this was a bidded out project or if it was just single bid.
It was primarily single bid, but if you want to go out to other bidders, you're adding a much longer time frame.
No, I'm not. I just need to know how it was handled to begin with. And can we see the budget or the total broken down by trade?
Yes,
Okay.
I can do.
Are the plans available at the offices of Public Works?
We can make them for you.
Okay, thank you.
They'd be down in the building department, town buildings downstairs in the land.
Well,
use.
the building department says they don't have any records of this building.
Not the building inspector, Bill's office downstairs, which happens to be next to the land use department.
Yeah,
Okay,
they have all the original big schematic stuff that we looked at too. That's down there as well.
Okay, so it's at our hands.
Yes. Ian, thank you Ian, thank you for your work. We really appreciate
Very
it.
nice. Kind of irritated. right?
Tiger, thank you very much as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very thorough. Appreciate it. All right. Item number 7, approval of the following bond authorization. Resolution authorizing an appropriation of $936,940 for the school security 2023 project and the financing of said appropriation by the issuance of general obligation bonds of the town in notes in anticipation of such bonds in the amount not to exceed $936,940. You'll all recall that we had an executive session at the last meeting discussing school security. Obviously, we will not be going into detail about that because we got all the detail at our last meeting. So this is a simple housekeeping event here.
So I'll make a
Make
motion.
a motion, Mark. Second, Kim. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Item number 8.
Dr. Letzi, thank you.
Yes, Dr. Dr. Lutzy, sorry.
That was a
That's the fastest we've ever worked, Doctor. So you want to say hello? Just say hello.
I would love to say hello and thank you to all of you and to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance as well for supporting this. Means a lot. We'll get going right away and makes a big difference for our school. So thank you.
Thank you.
Katrina's
Thank you
finger
for,
in the dark.
thank you for all the work as well.
Glad to do it.
Is that Katrina?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ah,
sure.
Katrina.
Hi.
Hi, Katrina. Thank you for joining.
Hi, thank you.
That might be the easiest approval you'll ever see. So I mean,
Great.
schools and security that's a pretty easy one.
Approval's approval, right?
Enjoy the rest of your summer, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
All right, land acquisition, item number 8. Oh,
Okay, he did.
He did.
I did.
He
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. He did. All right, since I made the motion, you want to read? it
Yeah,
again?
Mark can read again.
Yeah, motion to approve resolution authorizing an appropriation of $936,940 for the school security 2023 project and the financing of said appropriation by the issuance of general obligation bonds of the town and notes in anticipation of such bonds in an amount not to exceed $936,940. And
Mark made the motion and the
someone
second was
seconded.
Kim,
Kim.
and it was unanimous. All right, item number 8. Land acquisition fund. Come on up, Chris Shipper. It's an approval of a recommendation from the Conservation Commission to disperse $150,000 from the land acquisition fund in support of the New Canaan Land Trust acquisition of 1.8 acres and historic home on 1124 Valley Road, subject to a favorable 824 review of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Welcome, Chris, and
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're
Thank
welcome.
you, counselors. My name is Chris Shipper. I chair the Conservation Commission. I live at 8 Ferris Hill Road. Thank you for putting this on the agenda and bringing this to its final conclusion, which is we've been in front of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. Both groups unanimously approved the disbursement of funds from the Land Acquisition Fund for this purchase. With me is the Honorable Treasurer of the Land Trust and longtime Land Trust Board member, Art Berry. And also with me is John Winter, our Executive Director.
Welcome.
We would be happy to answer any questions regarding this motion.
All right, so I think many of us watched the Board of Finance meeting on this, but if you have questions, anybody want to kick off a question for?
Time for questions.
Yeah, it's a great time for questions. So, oh, Maria, go ahead.
So you're buying the whole house, right? The whole.
We're buying
house and the-
1.8 acres of land with the house.
The house. And what's the total cost or is this?
So I'll let Art Berry
It-
discuss that.
When we were talking to the first taxing district in Norwalk initially, we arrived at a number of $350,000 for the house and just a little over an acre that's right with the house. We were a little concerned about the safety going back to walk to our adjacent property, which is behind the house, about 10 acres called the Brown Preserve. And so as discussions went along, they thought it would make more sense for them to have a higher dollar figure in this transaction since they had purchased this house for 2.2 million approximately about 8 or 9 years ago. So 350, I guess, bothered somebody. And so we said, all right, well, we'd like another acre of land, which we will pay $150,000. And they said, that sounds good. So the total cost now is $500,000 for the land and the house.
And is the
And,
house?
and in lieu of the previous conversation about a 100-year-old building, I'm not going to say a single word about the house.
Second thoughts, because we have a 200
No, it's in pretty good shape. It's got a brand new roof and brand new HVAC and
Will that be open to the public? Is that gonna?
well, in some capacity, yes, but it's also going to be a place where our executive director can hang his or her hat, and it would be it's a win-win because it eliminates this commuting time from New Haven, which has existed in the past and is a real thorn
for anybody that's a director, and also put them closer by for any emergencies if we do have a big storm or
Mhm.
something like that.
I'm just being selfish. I live near there and I like walking there and
Yeah.
thought it would be nice to get a cup of coffee or something.
Well, I'm not sure.
Something else.
We'll keep the coffee hot. Maybe we could work out a deal.
Donation cup.
Yeah.
But the $150,000 is for the land. The house is being
Yeah.
purchased by a land trust. That's where the
Well,
money,
the whole thing's gonna be one package and.
right. But what we're paying for is for that extra
Right,
acre.
right. And it's, you won't find an acre of land in New Canaan for $150,000.
With water views.
Huh?
With
With
water
water
views.
Yeah,
And a
but
watering-
I think you all know about the history of the
Yeah.
land trust and so forth. I won't go into any of that, but we're making good progress. Chris really took it over about a dozen years ago, and we now have about 175 acres open to the public in our 8 of our biggest properties. And during COVID, people
Amazing.
just loved having a place to go. So it's a fine organization. I was president of the Open Lands Project in Chicago. And that's how I got interested in all of this. And it just, getting people outside is really helpful. And we can fight it all we want, but it does wonders, especially the little kids and, they grow up with a little different look on life. So,
Kim, you had a question for Art?
yeah.
Yeah, I like the house. I've actually toured it when it was for sale a long, long time ago. So it is a nice house.
Yeah.
So coffee might be good. But anyway, is there an MOU between the land trust and the town in terms of how that acre can be used? Is it restricted to open space with no encumbrances?
You want to talk about an easement?
Yeah, let me bring that up because I think you mentioned that at the last meeting. And, the experience we have previously is when we did the Silver Mine Fowler deal, the state of Connecticut came in and they asked for a preservation easement on the property in lieu of, in terms of giving us the funding. So among the Open Space Committee, we discussed the fact that what we would do as part of our subdivision requirements, because this will be a non-conforming subdivision because it's 2 acres of a 4-acre lot. That we would be prepared to write a conservation easement on 1 acre of the land, which would be held by the town or held or put on or run with the property. And that would be the understanding that that land would be permanently protected forever.
From what? Just from any encumbrances? You can't build
From
anything
any
on it?
Structures.
From
it
any
would be
structure.
kept as a natural wildlife sanctuary. And our thinking was that we would take 1 acre that would include the stone wall that runs along Valley Road and up that piece. We can't do the whole lot because it has a septic system, it has a well, it has to have a backup site for septic, it has a garden area, it has a driveway. But we can set aside and permanently protect 1 acre of the 1.8. And that works perfectly with the $150,000 jump.
Okay, so that's the part we're buying. You can put this, what did you call it? A conservation
We
easement?
put a conservation easement
On that
it.
1 acre that the town owns.
On 1 acre. It wouldn't be owned by the town. The land would still be owned by the land trust.
Okay.
But the easement would be on the land and it would run with the land. And that's how conservation easements work. They run with the land.
I see. Thank you.
All right, and just for the public, will this connect any of the other, when you talk about the acre, is there any connection to other property you have up there? Can you talk about that for a sec?
Behind it,
Yeah.
called the Brown Preserve. It's about 10 acres.
So will the plan be to be able to connect to that?
Already an opening in the wall, convenient.
Oh, there you go. All right, perfect.
So yes, it would, the one big advantage is if you live in that neighborhood, you no longer have to walk along that tight curve of Valley Road with the stone wall. You can walk right up to the property, up the steps, and then find a trail to take you all the way back.
Awesome.
And that's what an 824 review looks for. And we feel this property was highlighted in the last plan of conservation and development. I mean, there's literally 4 pages about why you want to do things like this. And I'll only, just for the general public, I will say, this is the Landmarks in New Canaan publication from 1951, and this is a landmark of New
Wow.
Canaan. So
Nice.
in the deal, we save a historic home. And yeah, our hope is that the ground floor would become offices for the land trust and a meeting space for the land trust and for visitors if they could come in.
Guest center.
Well, this is one of those.
You could have art classes.
Well,
this is one of those-
there's a lot of programming, we've talked to other land trusts and in particular Greenwich, and they said when they were able to get their permanent presence on a property, it was a game changer for them in terms of what they could do and who they could attract for their organization.
This is a watershed moment for us, so it's a really big deal.
I hope-
Land trusts who have created permanent headquarters, themselves have kind of seen their prospects, just kind of expand considerably from the whole visibility aspect.
Sounds like he's gonna have to
We're
be
really thrilled.
he sounds like he's gonna have to be a DIY guy. He's gonna be a lot of projects there, doing it himself.
Get my hand.
Just, and again, in that regard, we mentally increased the restoration budget as we listened to your previous talk. But I think our total lift on this will be closer to 1.5 million when we figure out what we need to do and what we need to endow on this property. We want to hand it to the next set of board members, not encumbered. So we want to give them something that really works.
That's amazing, Chris. I mean, this is one of those things you had us at hello. So, Mark.
Thank you for your service, and I don't really have anything to say other than I'll make the motion to approve.
Hillary seconds. Any other discussion? Any other questions? Where'd Christina go?
I did.
Hillary did.
Thanks.
Christina, you out there? There you go. You okay out there? Any questions?
She's on mute.
You're on
Oh,
mute.
you're on mute.
Christina.
She approves.
Unmute.
She approved.
Okay, there you go.
Yes, no, I'm pretty clear. I think Chris and everybody did a pretty good job at describing the situation, and I support it.
I mean, the land trust is just an amazing.
It's great fun.
Beyond amazing,
You
Steve.
you can't say enough about the land trust and what it means to New Canaan. So with that, let's vote. All in favor? And that is obviously unanimous. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can we
Thank you.
ask
Thank
Chris
you.
about his tree?
Oh, Chris, let's ask you about your tree. Thank you, Penny.
The
Bird sanctuary tree.
Yes, the mighty oak in front of the bird
I saw
sanctuary.
you on the street walking up to it, and it was just
Yes.
sad.
I don't think Tiger's here, but unfortunately, it lost a major wing in a little bit of heavy rain and a bit of wind. And it appears that the other wing is now vulnerable to falling, and that would be problematic. The state arborist has looked at it, the town tree warden has looked at it, and we brought in an independent viewpoint from Bartlett Tree Service, which has a long history of tree management. And all three experts have said this tree is vulnerable and could fall in a public thoroughfare. So I'm afraid we're losing our second big oak in 2 years. We lost the big one at the Waveney Park lawn, and now we're losing this one. It will have to come down, and I believe it really is, despite a lot of alternative thinking, it's going to come down, and it doesn't seem like we'll even be able to save the trunk of it per se. It's going to get completely taken down. It turns out that the part that broke didn't look like the one that was problematic. It's the other side of the tree that's almost hollow. So, when
Yes,
you
right.
tap it with a hammer, it sounds like a drum. And as a result, I'm afraid we're going to lose that tree pretty soon. I think Eversource will come in as soon as they're allowed to and take it out. So we'll have to think about a replacement, a long term. The tree is probably 350
Wow.
350 years old, 61-inch diameter, which is as big as it gets in New Canaan.
One of the ideas that Conservancy had with that old tree was to do a little fundraising out of what's coming out of it.
Coffee tables.
It'd be
They're gonna
great
make
to, I
coffee
mean, we got the
tables.
anniversary coming. Who wouldn't want a bird sanctuary 100th anniversary piece of oak with something?
Well,
on it? That would be-
you bring up a good point. When I talked with the arborist, and he said, there are not a lot of straight pieces here in terms of what's there. He said it would make great firewood.
Oh, geez.
So it's a little unfortunate. I asked, could we save a part of it so that it could fruit, could acorn out and then we could have offspring. And they said, yeah, it's really hard to do any of that once you start cutting it up. So we'll look around for some of its saplings or seedlings and see whether we can't preserve that for the future.
It's great. Well, thanks, Chris.
I'm guessing firewood would probably be the outcome, and that would need to dry out for a while too. So thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Much appreciated. All right, next item up is a report. We have item number 9, which is a report on the progress of the police station. And I'm just pulling up an email Bill Walbert sent. I was gonna have Mike Morrow read it, but just give me one sec. It's very brief. Since Mike's not here, Bill was gonna come tonight, but I told him there's not a lot of progress. He's gonna come to our September meeting. But here's what he writes. There's been no change to our budget of the project timing since our last update to the town council a month ago. As of now, in rough numbers, we expect to spend $20 million on construction costs, $5 million on soft costs, $2 million on the move, and $2 million on contingencies. We expect to have the police out of South Avenue and move to 39 Locust Avenue by the end of November. We expect them to move back to South Avenue in November of 2025. Board of Education has been very responsive and helpful to vacate 39 Locust and to move to the new offices on Elm Street. Once they're out, we'll modify 39 Locust to accommodate the police. As one would expect, there's much safety and communication equipment that has to be ordered for the temporary police station. Additionally, signage and town-wide communication plan to help ensure this public safety of the temporary police location. As for South Avenue, long lead time on equipment, generator, switching, and HVAC has been ordered. Cost of those items came back slightly better than the budget. That's good news. We expect to receive final bids from Turner Construction and potential subcontractors by the end of August. By that time, Turner will be able to prepare the town with the maximum construction cost, which will be good to have in September. And then we expect to have that number and report to town bodies in September. Also in September, we will have an update on the construction fit out on 39 Locust Avenue. As always, thank you for your help, Bill Walbert. So that's really the update. So I thought rather than having Bill come out in July, just give us the update in writing. So that's it for the update. Any questions? You can certainly shoot Bill an email. All right, item number 10, financial update. Josh, is Josh out there?
I am out here. Yep.
Hey,
hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Great.
You got a pina colada in your hand or something? Where are you?
It's actually an old fashioned.
Nice.
So I'm gonna share my screen, but you should have it on your tablets. All right, it's as big as I think I can fit it on there. So in front of you, you have the year-to-date financials as of June 30th. Keeping in mind these were ran a couple weeks ago, and these, of course, are by no means the audited numbers. These are really preliminary year-end numbers. So there will still be changes from this point. So starting on the revenue side of things, the overall revenue is at 102.1% or 3.24 million over what was budgeted. I had actually just run this this morning, and it's actually closer to 3.4 million over what was budgeted, so that was good. Those are of course led by tax collections. There was a small uptick from last month, putting it at 1.13% over 101% of what was budgeted, which is about $2 million over. The prior year collections are another 200,000 over what was budgeted for the year. Down to building permits, it's at 113% or 115,000 over what was budgeted, which is still better than we thought we would do, but down 50,000 from prior year. Conveyance fees, unfortunately, at this point, when they were ran, we're at 83% of what was budgeted, or 325,000 under what we had planned, which is $650,000 down from last year. But obviously, we're kind of seeing that downward slope back towards the normalcy for conveyance fees. Parking is at 91%, just short by 80,000. I know today alone I saw probably 25,000 get put in and another maybe 10-15,000 for that. So I think we're gonna get to 100% for that, which is good to see that kind of come back to pre-COVID numbers. In the other revenues, we're at 126% of what was budgeted, or 1.6 million over. That's kind of led by interest on investments is at 1.2 8 million or 780,000 over what was budgeted. Any questions on the revenue side of things?
It looks, no questions, Josh. That's the kind of report we like.
Yeah, it's looking good. On the expenditure side of things, at the time this was ran, and I'll scroll down, it was at 97.6%, 97.7%, or 4.4 million of remaining expenditures. That, of course, is made up by we're not expecting to end the year with 4.4 million left of unspent expenses. Our expectation is closer to 400,000 to the good. So a lot of that is 640,000 in encumbrances, and 500,000 in town payrolls, and Board of Ed payrolls are also in there as well. But that is kind of where we see ourselves ending the year. When we had planned the mill rate out, we expected it to be 2.8 million to the good in revenue and 400,000 to the good in expenses. And I think we'll probably come down on the expenses, but we're obviously already at 3.4 million to the good in revenue. So things are looking pretty good, in pretty good shape. Any questions?
Any questions for Josh? Everything looks like it's tracking fine, so.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Back to your pina colada, Josh. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night.
All right, so we actually ran pretty efficiently tonight, so let's do committee reports if we have them. We'll just run down real quick. Bylaws and ordinance, we did meet tonight, so we have a little bit of news. So Tom, Hillary?
Well, we just decided to simplify the ordinance structure by eliminating historical relic ordinance that's about 40 pages long. In most towns does not exist in an ordinance, but exists in rules adopted by Board of Selectmen, et cetera. And so rather than take that on because it's tended to get out of date easily, and it didn't conform with other agreements and documents that the town primarily relied on. So it just wasn't necessary. And so we've instructed the Bircham Moses to come back with a plan to eliminate as much of it as they can. But we won't do that until something is left in its place to clarify all the relevant rules in other places. So it simplifies our job a bit.
Excellent. Not the sexiest bylaw and ordinance meeting, but it's the work you did.
But it was short.
Yes, thank you for all the work. Education, obviously, school's out, but just a brief. I think there's an opening on the Board of Ed, and that's going to be filled through the election process. Is that correct? Is anybody?
There's a what process?
With
Selectmen, I believe, is that?
I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll answer that at our next meeting, I guess.
If it's not filled quickly, it'll have to be through the election process. Right?
Yeah. Okay. So is there expected to be a decision, you think, or?
I don't think they're gonna.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Finance and government, Mark and Maria. Nothing. Okay. Health and Human Services. Anything, Patty? Kim? No. Infrastructure and utilities, we pretty much covered major projects. Christina, you don't have anything, do you?
No.
Thank you. Land use and conservation, Robin. We just approved some money. That's good.
Yeah, that is good.
Luke.
Actually, I have a question for
She's the
Kevin
show.
on the conservation. Kevin, or with the acquisition fund, if we let it lapse, if the money's not put into it, it has to be closed, right? Per the state statute?
Well, I don't know that. I believe one or more centers funded now.
Okay, such funds shall not lapse at the close of the municipal fiscal year.
We'll give 149,000.
That's good to me. So Parks and Rec had a really long meeting. They went over 2 hours.
Wow.
Do you want the highlights or?
Are there like 4 highlights we could hear? or-
I mean, Tiger presented,
Uh,
so that's why,
It was
I would like to highlight, I play pickleball and you can't concentrate because there's like an entire patio going in with stone dust and noise.
and that's gonna be finished in a couple of weeks. And they're having some issues with the pickleball because some people are showing up at 6 in the morning to play. So they're not gonna be locking them till 8.
Oh, till 8 in the
Yeah,
morning?
the thing though is the racket club has given them some, I guess they're kind of like temporary courts, maybe that you put over tennis courts, and they're going to the high school to have additional pickleball.
When will that start?
That is,
Thanks, Robin.
sorry. Oh, I wish John Howe was here. That they're in the process of doing that now.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So it was just, LAPA might be extending hours if they receive a grant, an ARPA grant actually, from the state to help with, seniors and help with isolation. The commission approved that. Talked about the patio, they're finishing it up. Tiger was talking a lot about Waveney, the powerhouse, the bathrooms and the annex are, patio are going in, but they're waiting on the potting shed to determine what the powerhouse wants to do. The carriage bar and the exterior patio needs work. The walkway is compliant, but the rest is not ADA compliant. Paddle courts, the Department of Justice said the paddle courts are not accessible. And that temporary ramp is not enough. So there's talk about putting in a deck over the paddle hut. Deck it up so it's same grade as all the huts. So it's gonna be this one big social area. And Tiger's gonna look to put that in the budget for next year. Waveney parking lot, they do have to put stripes in. Tiger did not want to do that for years, but when the Justice Department came in and they looked, they're like, well, how many spaces we need to know before the ADA? Mead parking lot was having some issues. They're putting in more boulders in that island because people are parking on there. The playground has been put off at Waveney, so they're going to start a committee now. John Howe is getting the committee up and running. Bristow looks great, and that's about it. It's just a long meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Public safety, neither Rita or Mike is here tonight, so we'll skip that. We heard about the PD, so. Library, Mark and I, the only update we have on the library is at the Monday meeting. Wolf Movers is here. They've been working for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and if you go by the 1913 building, obviously you'll see the steel that's been set, and within the next 3 weeks, they're gonna lift the building out of the ground. They'll move it onto the tracks, and the foundation for the 1913 is there, so they'll lift it up, it'll sit overnight, then they'll move it on a set of tracks. And then over the next day or 2, they set it onto the foundation. So that'll be a really interesting thing to see. So
It's super exciting. Given the material that it's built with limestone and things, and the age of that wall. You're laughing, Tom?
I know where you're going, right?
Okay, let's go to the journey together. Are we gonna lift this thing up and it crumbles like dust? I mean, like, it would be heartbreaking that we put so much energy, effort and expenses into like this should be preserved. Pardon me. No, I mean, I think it was a town decision, and I think it's an excellent one.
Library decision.
all right. So anyway, the question was.
Luke, I think you bring up a good point. I don't know why Penny's laughing, but I think let's answer Luke's question.
Yeah. So the answer. So the answer.
Just saying, like, I'm
God
throwing
forbid.
it out there, like, we're all here together, we all support each other, we're all, is there any concern that when we lift this, that's gonna crumble?
So the company that's moving it is the foremost historical moving company in
I
the
heard
world.
they're
In
absolute
the
best.
world.
I want to go on record, they're the absolute best, and I've heard that.
So they've moved, I've seen projects, they've moved lighthouses, actual 250 feet light and old brick lighthouses that they are able to stabilize and move. They move office buildings that are made out of brick. This is like a this is like a hobby for them right now. A little building like that is nothing. I mean, it's, and if you look at the steel involved in what they've crossed underneath that building in a crisscross pattern, so the steel that supports that whole building could lift, 7, 8, 9 of those buildings. I mean,
I'm super positive. I love it. I love what we've done, the library and the facade and restoring or, making that part of the new building and being. It's just, people have come to me and I just raised the question.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in that. But I think it's very important to carry forward that building into the project, because the library, I have heard nothing but blowout, unbelievable. This is absolutely fantastic. I have a 10, 8, and 7-year-old, so the kids hang out there. They absolutely love it.
it's good to have.
The last setting is, can we transfer this over? And personal, this wasn't hey, I know what I'm doing. Look, I'm very focused on what I know. I'm saying, are we sure? And I heard the same that Steve, that you said that this company is the best of the best. And I'm excited to combine the two. I'm very excited.
I think it's a valid point because I've heard that too. So it's good to know this company has a great reputation and is the best in its field. But every time we drive by, I hear
Yeah.
about it.
You
So-
can't stop people from wondering. I mean, we.
No, they love it.
we
No,
won't
they
know
love
until we know.
they love the building,
Right.
and they're just they're nervous. They're like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, when this actually happens. The idea was great, but they're nervous about that. It might.
Collapse. Yeah, got it. Okay. You won't know till you move it, unfortunately. All right, that was it for the committee reports. And now we are going to move into executive session. So we need a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of real estate negotiations. So Penny makes a motion, second. Maria, all in favor? That's unanimous, and we are going to
Town
invite in
attorney Mario Capola is on, and Tucker and Bob. And
Bob. That's it, right? Yep.
perhaps you ought to say you're not going to vote when you come out of this meeting, so.
And
Oh, is it?
yeah,
Ann's-
if
Ann's
you,
welcome
if
to
she's
stay,
interested, sure. Have her,
Ann's
have her
welcome to
jump
stay,
in.
sure.
Absolutely.
But just so people don't expect you to take any
Yeah,
action
so
coming out of
We,
executive session.
we will not.
Whoa, people.
Sorry, I'll sit back down.
So we need a motion to come out of executive first. Oh, all right, so we're out. All right, so we need a motion to adjourn, guys. We just coming out of executive. That's Maria, seconded Luke, all in favor to adjourn. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Kevin, and everybody have a good night. And right now, there's no meeting in August, but you never know. Never know.